Today I want to talk about the desperate need we have for a return to civility. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, just turn on your favorite unbiased news source. Try and watch a debate sometime, and you'll realize very quickly that it's not much of a debate at all. It's more of an argument, a free-for-all. It reminds me of the old Saturday Night Live spoof of Point and Counterpoint, where the two people presenting different sides, instead of presenting their side, they spent most of the time insulting one another. Same on the business channels. On the business channels, you could tune in and you could have different sides presenting their points of view, and one would give the pros and one would give the cons, and you could make up your own mind as to whatever was right for you, whether it was talking about investments or business strategies or whatever it might be. Even in our sports stations, you tune in and you'll see different people, and they can't even talk to one another in a polite fashion. If anyone has a different opinion than they do, very quickly they start tearing down the other side. Instead of showing the merits of their own side, they spend too much time trying to show the flaws of the other side. And because of this, we continue to have a problem with civility. It's not just television. Look at the movies. You go there and it's the tough guy syndrome, where somebody is wronged and we have an attitude of, I will not be wronged. You slap me on the cheek and I'll shoot you, buddy. It's just gotten out of hand. And even in our music industry, especially the rap music industry, it seems to be a competition between one person and another to see who can give the biggest insult to the other. And the one that can insult the other person the most is deemed the winner. That's the type of competitions that they have in some of these rap contests. Well, we see this in just about every area of our society right now. But I'll also point out that it's not just limited to our entertainment. You just try and go to a town hall meeting, a political rally of some sort, or even a school board meeting. And what do you find? You find some of the harshest rhetoric that you could possibly imagine. I remember a number of years ago when people like Ronald Reagan were running, and regardless of what you think about him, good or bad, one thing that he did very well was he very rarely would criticize his opponent. And if he did criticize them, he was more criticizing the position they were taking instead of devolving into some sort of a personal attack on the person or the opponent themselves. He had a commandment that was speak no wrong of your fellow Republican when he joined the Republican Party. But my point is that even the political debates were different. There seemed to be a different level of respect back then that's almost non-existent now. And so you go to a town hall meeting, and what do you get? You just get one rancorous comment after another about the other side. And very often, instead of trying to show the benefits of one person's position, they just show how bad the other position is. They really don't stand for anything, they just stand against things. And this is true whether it's a national political figure or whether it's just your local government. And school board meetings, where we used to have parent-teacher associations that would come and present different ideas that would be in the best interest of the students. And then you would have the administrators and the teachers on the other side working hand in hand with the PTA to try and figure out the very best way to educate the children in the very safest possible environment. They wanted to give the kids the best chance they could to succeed. But now you go to a school board meeting and it just seems like people are mad at each other. And rather than looking at the best interest of the kids, very, very rarely do you even hear that mentioned, unless it's by one side saying the other side doesn't have the best interest of the kids in mind. Well, we shouldn't be surprised at this, because even in some of the churches, in the meetings, when the church members get together to talk about things worthy, noble things, such as spreading the gospel or taking care of the poor, very often, even in these meetings, the people that have different opinions will often attack the other side. And instead of trying to work together hand in hand to further the Lord's kingdom, it's almost a competition. We've got to have a return to civility. But why have we become so uncivil? Maybe one of the clues to that is something that we read in 1 Peter chapter 1. Verse 22, it says this: "Now that you have purified yourselves by obeying the truth, so that you have a sincere love for your brothers, love one another deeply from the heart." Well, contrast love and what's the opposite? Isn't it hate? And so when we find ourselves speaking hatefully against somebody or some position or some side, isn't it because we're not loving them as we should? Peter, through inspiration, passes on a commandment from God: love one another deeply from the heart. When was the last time you were involved in any kind of a public meeting or any kind of a public forum where you really felt that the other side was loving the people on the other side deeply from their heart? Much more likely we just hear hateful words. And if that's the case, then it's very clear that they don't love one another. They have violated that commandment. It's sad when we see that on our news programs and our business news programs and our sports news programs. It's sad when we see it in our Let's Pretend movies and television programs and in our music industry where people talk bad about another. That's sad enough, but when you see it when we're trying to get together and talk about the good of our nation or the good of our community or the good of our school, and you don't see love involved in it, well, you can understand why things have become so uncivil. But as sad as that is, when the church, the body of people who should love each other more than anyone else, the body of people who should be happier than anyone else, the body of people who should be more concerned about the needs of those who are less fortunate than themselves, who should be concerned about the lost. Very often you see, even in these meetings, where they're speaking harsh words towards one another. And it doesn't appear that they love one another deeply from the heart at all. As a matter of fact, it appears just the opposite. Jesus gave this commandment before he died. He was talking to his disciples, the 11 apostles that were left after Judas went to betray him. And he gave this commandment. It's a wonderful commandment. It's found in John chapter 13 in verse 34. And he says this: "A new command I give you, love one another." Well, you read that and you think, well, that's not a new commandment. We've always been commanded to love one another. And maybe the apostles were thinking that very thing, but Jesus didn't stop with that. He said this. Let me read the whole command. "A new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so also you must love one another." See, that's the key. It's not having just a humanistic affection for one another. The love that we have should be so deep as to the point it actually reflects the love that Jesus has shown to his disciples. As a matter of fact, to the whole world when he gave his life for the entire world. It's always interesting to pay attention to Christ's conversations that he had with those who were in need or with those who were sincerely seeking the truth. there always seemed to just be a depth of compassion and concern for them. The love just came out when he spoke to them and interacted with them. And again, contrast that to our modern times where sometimes our conversations are so uncivil that we wonder if there's not about to be a fight breaking out. The fact of the matter is that if we don't get a hold of ourselves, if we don't have a return to civility, and that means if we don't have a return to loving one another deeply from the heart, things are just going to get worse. And maybe you're like me. Maybe you're to a stage in life where you're older and you just don't have to interact with that many people. Maybe you're thinking, well, the next generation can solve this, but think about this. When we talk about a return to civility, when we talk about a return to loving each other as we should, aren't our children worth it? Aren't our grandchildren worth it? It's going to take a lot of effort to come away from this depth of incivility that we seem to be saturated with in our modern times. It's not going to be easy, and a lot of people won't go along with you. A lot of people will just be as rude and unkind and as hateful as they always have been. And you might be tempted to be discouraged, but keep in mind why you're doing this. You are doing this because you love your children, you love your grandchildren, and even more than that, it's because you love Jesus and you love God. And because Jesus gave us the commandment to love each other as He has loved us. And because God has given us the commandment to love one another deeply from the heart. This is not something we can fake. It's not something that we can manufacture in some false way. It's something that really does have to come from the heart. The motivation has to be genuine. But if it is, I believe we can recover. Society can be saved. And even if not all of society can be saved, at least the church can be restored to what it was intended to be. But we're going to have to get rid of the uncivil talk. We're going to have to get rid of the uncivil comments and thoughts that we have towards one another. And we're going to have to replace that with a deep and abiding love that comes from the heart, that comes from an appreciation of what Jesus and what God have done for us. If we can somehow recapture that motivation, I believe we can help to rescue the Lord's church here on earth. But if we don't, well, not only will the church suffer, but our communities will suffer, and society as a whole will suffer. And it'll just keep on getting worse and worse until we consume one another with hatred. We can't do that. We can't do that for ourselves. We owe to God much more than that, and we owe it to the future generations to give them a better society. It begins with you. Let's have a return to civility in our conduct, in our conversation, and deep within our hearts, that we might be able to maybe turn things around. It's not too late, but it's starting to get a little bit late in the game. We better begin right now. Well, I thank you for tuning in today. I hope this gives you something to think about. If you have any comments on it, please share it. I always like to see your comments, and I always try to respond to that. But again, thank you for listening today. I hope we'll see you again next time. But God bless.